Sometimes my anxious, leaning, fearful avoidance get in the way of the healing process and progress for my dismissive avoidance and my avoidance that are fearful avoidance that lean more dismissive. Leslie Wells, connection coach. I help individuals heal, thrive, improve, repair, and connect more deeply in their romantic relationships by looking at things through an attachment lens. So my fearful avoidance, and there's no judgment here because that was the former me before I did my work. I was a fearful avoidant, leaning very anxious, so I very much resonate with what I'm going to speak to and have experienced it, have been that, so no judgment, but bear with me. Fearful avoidants who lean anxious can be very highly reactive and can fight to connect. They can often be unfair with their protest behaviors, and they can really hurt with their words. So when they are deeply hurt and they really live in their pain, and it's very close to the surface, they deeply feel pain and disconnection more than the other attachment styles. So in their pain, they will often try to subconsciously make others feel their pain with their harsh words, their harsh treatment, and they can be very unfair. Now, while they are hyper attuned to the needs, emotions, and what's going on with the people around them, they also miss that attunement when they're stuck in their own pain, meaning that when there is a crisis or a rupture or a disconnection and they are deeply in their pain, they're so consumed with their own pain that they cannot see the pain that's going on within their partner. They make assumptions about their partner. They write stories about their partner that are maybe not true, and they often assign malicious intent and assume the worst of their partner. And so they're unable to see the true experience of their partner. And a lot of times in their anger, when they're desperately trying to be seen and heard, which is one of their biggest needs, they will be so busy trying to be seen and heard that they are unable to sit back, regulate, and actually hear about their partner's experience. One of the biggest complaints I get from fearful avoidants who lean anxious about their avoidant partners is that they have this superficial, surface level relationship, that they want to deeply connect. So fearful avoidants have this deep desire to deeply connect, and they really crave intimacy. However, they are also afraid of it. So there's this push-pull dynamic that happens a lot of times, where when they start to feel unsafe, they then push away really hard because they have this subconscious wound of betrayal from their childhood, and they are always sort of waiting for the other shoe to drop, for someone to betray them, harm them, disappoint them, let them down, and essentially, eventually abandon them. So they really crave deep, intimate conversations, deep emotional intimacy. They really want this closeness and this connection. And they really want to get to know their partners on a deep level. So they get very frustrated when they don't get that for their partner, because that fills their cup, makes them feel safer, and makes them feel more connected. Now, avoidants are just the opposite. Those things are very hard for them. So a lot of the work that I do with avoidants, particularly the dismissive avoidants, is teach them how to stay present and engaged in conflict. So typically what happens for an anxious, leaning, fearful avoidant, or anyone who's dealing with someone who's more avoidant, is during conflict, their behaviors, a lot of times, are harsh words, their overreactivity, their emotional dumping, them expressing all of these feelings that often are not the true feeling, they're not really the thing under the thing that needs to be expressed vulnerably. A lot of times what happens is their avoidant partner will then feel triggered by this dynamic, and they will shut down, withdraw, suppress, and distract and pull away, leaving the fearful avoidant feeling abandoned in that moment and unseen and unheard, which sends them. And in that case, they can either get bigger and louder and more anxious and really show up unwell and unkindly, or they can just put up that hard wall, put up a wall, shut down, and push away. So part of the work of the avoidant is to learn how to sit in their emotions. They cannot take on the emotions of their partner until they first learn to identify, access, and put words to their own emotions to show up with more vulnerability in the relationship. Vulnerability equals intimacy. The problem becomes when they start finding their voice, when they're able to start actually experiencing their emotions, putting words to them, and then are attempting to express them to the fearful avoidant. A lot of time the fearful avoidant does not create a safe space. So fearful avoidants in conflict are quick on their feet. They are like in attack mode. They are fast with their words. Where avoidants need more time and space to process. They don't process as quickly, and because they are fighting this trauma response of going into flight or freeze state, where they literally have not a thought in their head, not a word, they don't know what to do, they're sort of frozen. That's called alexithymia. It's actually a thing. When they're in that space, they have to fight against that trauma response to stay present and engaged and actually deal with conflict. And so they feel safety when they remove themselves from the situation and the conflict. And so asking them to stay in that space when there are still attacks, accusatory language, character attacks, harsh words, ugliness, lots of emotionality, does not help them. It triggers them worse, and they have to fight to go back to their comfortable trauma response and the neural circuitry that is built around this giving them relief from the situation. So a lot of times what I see is I get the avoidant in a place where they are really able to put words to what's going on for them in a truthful, non-critical way for their fearful avoidant, so they can actually show who they are to that person who supposedly wants to get to know them more deeply and understand them and connect with them. But then when they do that, if it's not what the fearful avoidant wants to hear, they get worse, they trigger their partner worse. And so they're trying, but they're not being able to be met where they're at, and there's not a safe place for them to grow in this way for their healing journey. So fearful avoidance. Your avoidant actually getting in tune with themselves so they can share their true, authentic self and show up vulnerably for actual emotional intimacy and vulnerability requires that you are able to handle the things that they have to say, that you are able to stay regulated, keep your emotions in check, and respond from a compassionate, caring place, and then deal with whatever comes with that. But you have to be able to meet your partner where they're at. In order for them to heal. And so it may be things that you don't want to hear. It may be things that are surprising about them that then make you feel unsafe in your body. So if you're not doing your work too, then you're not going to be able to hold space for your partner as they are actually healing, and that can throw a whole new wrench into your dynamic. So often I work with an avoidant person and they're like, oh my gosh, I know if I say this thing, here's what's going to happen. They're going to blow up. They're going to get ugly. They're going to create distance. They're going to get mad. They're going to yell, all the things that trigger them. And so it's really important for you, if you're the fearful avoidant, that you recognize this is part of the healing process and this is part of your partner getting healthier. And if you truly want them to stop being so avoidant, then you have to create room to support them as they are finding their voice and being able to speak to the things that are going on with them. And then you have to be able to get self-reflective, which fearful avoidants are so good at. You can take this feedback, you can self-reflect on it, and you can figure out where you need to show up better for your partner as well. Part of the challenge for the fearful avoidant is they have so much built up resentment and pain because they have begged and begged and begged and pleaded for so long and asked their partner to meet them where they're at, to show up and meet their needs, to hear them, to see them, to validate them, to share with them, and they haven't gotten that. And so it's like all of a sudden, like, I've been begging you to do these things, and now you're just going to come in here and tell me what your experience is and what you want and what I'm not doing right. And so it's really easy to shift to that place instead of looking at it through a better lens, which is this is part of their work. They're being more true with me. They're being more honest. They're being more transparent. They are being more authentic. And while it may not be the things that I want to hear, like if I truly am wanting to move towards growth together and my goal truly is reconciling the relationship and changing the dynamic, then I need to let go of my anger and bitterness and resentment that this is, happening now and that they're speaking up now, even though I have this whole history of feeling like my needs were not met. They are meeting my needs now and they're attempting to. You have to make a decision. Are you really wanting to keep moving towards those goals, or are you going to stay stuck in the bitterness and the resentment of the past and prevent the relationship from now moving towards those goals? It's not uncommon for me to see originally for many, many, many years, the avoidant creating this dynamic where you cannot have closeness in a relationship. And then as they start getting healthier, if the fearful avoidant is not really doing their work, they are then the ones that begin to self-sabotage the relationship. So as someone who is a former fearful avoidant, I know how difficult this is, but it really is important for you to give your avoidant a safe place to start showing up in authentic ways. And that will ultimately, if you can do that, create more safety for you.